Welcome. My name is Dale. Today I'm going to go step by step on Easel's new 3D, and it's going to be for beginners by a beginner. Some things that I've learned on my own and also gathered from various comments around, and a few of the steps that I've found that a lot of people are confused with and trying to set up a model in Easel that nobody has really took the time to go step by step slow enough for people to understand. So that's what we're going to do. Try to keep the video as short as I can, not let it run too long. But if you get bored easy, this is not the video for you. If you're a 2D, 2.5D carver and you are used to lightning speeds on your machines, this is not the video for you. 3D takes a long time to carve. So if you're expecting super lightning fast speeds doing 3D, it's not for you, that's for sure. I do it for enjoyment only, and so I noticed a lot of people are trying to do it and they can't do it. So I figured I would take the time and go very slow and make a step-by-step video to help the beginner get into 3D and make a first simple carve so they can learn how to do it. So let's get started. First off, when you log into Easel, it brings up your projects. So we're going to click on New Project. And then we want to bring us in a 3D model. You cannot open the file of this model and try to bring it into Easel. It will not let you do it. So they put in a new tab right here, the little cube, and it says Import STL File. So you want to click on that. Now your files have to be under 100 megabytes in order for it to bring it in. Other than that, you'll have to reduce it, but that'll be a different video. So we're going to click on Bring In, choose a file, and we're going to go find a simple file. We're going to do Baby Yoda. Very simple carve, and we're going to click on Open. Now, as you can see, we have Baby Yoda up on the screen. Now, if you look over in your upper right hand corner, you're going to see you have a warning. You have a warning right here. That's telling you that your model height is higher than your material. So if you'll notice up here where it says birch plywood, type of wood, doesn't really matter, and it says 0.5. That means our wood is only a half an inch thick and our model is higher than the thickness of our material. So we're going to change that to 0.75, which gives us 3/4. Now you'll notice we still have our little warning up here. The reason being is the Z height right here down on the lower left. It's a Z by itself. It says 1647. We're going to clear that. And we're going to put in 0.5. And you'll notice your model height dropped. And your warning on top up here went away. So now that we've done that, you can rotate the material and you'll see that your height of your model is way below the top of your material height, which is the green line on top. So we're going to go back to Z, and I'm going to change that to a number 7. And you'll notice your model height came back up. That's pretty much as high as you can go with this model, with the 3/4 thickness material we're using. And I will show you what I mean. I'm going to take it to a number 8. And you'll notice we got our warning back up in the upper right hand corner. That says you made the model too high. So we're going to take it back to 7. That's our limit we can go with this model. Now this is going to be a full cutout. So we'll go down here over on the right hand side, and you'll see full depth cutout with tabs. And if you click on this, it gives you rectangle relief and another boundary relief cutout. But if you're just going to stay with full depth cutout, it's a good beginner one right there on that. Easel will do tabs, but they're so thin that they break out. You want to back this up with some double-sided tape. What I do is I take painter's tape, I put it down on my spoil board, then I put the double sticky tape on top of that, and then guesstimate about where the center of my model is going to be when I put it down. And when you make your carve, that way it'll hold it down. It won't let it move. Easel will cut out, but the tabs are so thin it either will not leave any, or they're so thin it won't hold the material in place. So if it comes loose, you're going to ruin your project. Now when you move down to the direction of your finishing cut, you'll notice that the blue one is on x-axis is lit up. That means if your material is turned this way, so your grain runs right or left to right, when it carves, it will start and it will carve with the grain, which will give you a very smooth cut. Now, if your material is turned this way with the grain running bottom to top, you want to use this setting, and that way it will start on the left, or the right, excuse me, and it will carve back across the material with the grain. Now, these toolpaths don't always run all the way across. They it may leave a big spot right in the middle, so don't panic. It's in the toolpath. It will come back and get that before it finishes. So that's not something to panic about. I mean, I did the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh, my carve is ruined. But then I got to watching the machine, and it actually came back and finished that. So as another member on the Easel face group page said, they don't run like a lawnmower. They move around at different spots. So don't panic if that happens to you. Now you can rough this in with a 1/4 inch bit, and you can use the 1/8 inch bit for finishing on this one because it doesn't have a lot of fine detail. But if you want to get into some fine detail, then you want to use a 1/16 of an inch bit, like I used on this eagle. I roughed in with a 1/4 inch, and I did a 1/16 inch bull nose or ball nose as a finishing bit because of the fine detail in the fish and some of the finer detail in the eagle. This wood wasn't completely dry, so I do have a little fuzzy. but it's hard. It's red oak wood, so it's hard. And to show you what happens when you forget to set the direction you want it to carve with your grain, when I did Baby Yoda here, you'll see how rough that is. This was totally dry red oak, but halfway through the carve, I realized I forgot to set it to go with the grain. My grain actually ran up and down. I forgot, and it was going across the grain, so that's why I got such a rough carve. Lesson learned, note to self. Now, as far as materials go, the harder your wood, the nicer your carve, and the less aggressive you want to be with your rough end cuts. But a cheap alternative to get you started is get yourself some MDF. Now, this is the first 3D carve I did, just to see if I could do 3D carve. I did this with a 1/4 rough end and the 1/8 inch ball nose for a finish. And it's a fairly thick model. And I did this on 1/2 inch MDF that I had laying around. So there is materials that you can use that are cheap. I mean, oak is expensive. Pine's relatively cheap, but pine's soft, and pine will have a tendency, I think I showed this earlier, to chip out on fine lines. You know, it just depends on how the material is. Like, you know, this was done on some red oak. This was done on some pine. But they don't have, the pine one, the owl, doesn't have a lot of fine details, so I got away with using the pine and the 1/4 inch bit and all that. Now, let's move on to cut depth and the cut settings. You'll notice on the automatic that it puts in 0.28, which is not a lot. It's not going to really cut a lot. So if you click on manual, it automatically sets at 30 inches a minute. That's fine for me. I'm in no hurry. But you'll notice it has the 0.28. So what I've found that helps me get a cut that I know, I deal in millimeters a lot of times on my cut. I'll come down here and where it says 0.7, I'll take that completely out and I'll put 1 millimeter, and that way when it makes its passes it's only going to take 1 millimeter deep. Now if you put in a 1 in the inches, that's going to cut 2.5 millimeters deep, which is pretty aggressive. And on the small machines that a lot of us are running, like the 3018s and the ProVer XLs, that's hard on the spindles and the motors and everything like that. It shakes all your screws loose, excuse me, and everything on your machine. So let's go back to the cut settings here, and the finishing is 30 inches a minute. The plunge rate, it's kind of slow, but for your first time you can actually change this. A lot of times I'll change it up to 15. What that does, it changes how fast your bit gets up and down and moving through the carves. Step over, I'm going to bring it down to 8%. That'll give you finer carve lines. Now keep in mind, I'm no pro at this. I'm just going through a simple things that I have learned that will hopefully help somebody who is trying to get started and is afraid to get started or whatever. So that's the whole deal. Now I'm not going to change this material size I think I actually did mine at 8 inches by 6 inches wide. Now, if you want to change your model size, you can't manipulate, drag it, and drop it around like you can in 2.5D. But if you, where it says lock XY, if you click on that, and let's say we want to reduce this down to, let's go to 6 inches, just for an example. You'll see the model dropped. The whole thing sized, but it didn't get out of proportion. When you lock that, it keeps everything in an equal proportion. It doesn't get all oblonged or all widened out. So that's how you can resize the height and width of your model. And of course, the Z height right here, that's how you determine the height of your model within your material. If you're using 1/2 inch material, you would have to drop this down to about a 4, which is what I think I did on that Eagle. And you're going to do your full cutout. Just remember, whichever way, if you're using wood, whichever way your grain's going, you want to make sure that this cuts with the grain and not against the grain, or you'll have a rough cut. Now that we've got all that set up, let's go click on Toolpaths. And because we're only taking 1 millimeter cuts on a pass, it's going to take it gives you the warning it's going to take a long time to generate everything and longer to rough in. So we'll get us some toolpaths made. It might take a minute. You'll notice on the bottom it says 1 to 2 hours and 5 to 7 hours finishing. But once it creates the toolpaths, all of that will change. There we go, just like that. Now we're 1 hour 56 minutes at 30 inches per minute at 1 millimeter per pass. Now we'll click on finishing. It'll give us a finishing of 6 hours and 8 minutes, which is a long time actually. If you go in and you change that plunge rate to 15, it will speed up. It'll shorten your finishing time, but we're just doing an example here. Now, if you want to make sure that you have your model height set right and that everything will carve, just put your cursor on the little dot and move it across, and you'll see exactly how this is going to carve. It's going to go, just make sure you have it set for the way your grain runs. But as you can see, it'll be a full carve. There's no flat spots showing or anything in there like that. That's a mistake I think some people make. If you just run this, when you do your finishing, it'll show you it's going to carve every part of your model that you got in there. Then you can click on Show Preview. It'll generate you a preview of what it's going to look like. Now you'll see it shows a tab here and here and here, but these things are so thin that they will not hold this model in place while it's being finished once it cuts it out on the rough end cut. So we make sure you double tape this down, or glue it, or however you use, whatever you use, or this thing will come loose on you and then you'll have a ruined carve, which is discouraging if you spend so much time setting things up. Anyway, I hope this was a help. Any questions, you can leave them in the comments down below. I'll try to answer them. And again, I am not an expert. I am a beginner trying to help beginners get started. So thanks for watching. If you like it, give it a big thumbs up. And we'll see you on another video.